Are you familiar with the QVC shopping network?
You mean like the TV stations?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I used to watch them late at night.
Yep. Well, they're now doing holiday movies.
Wait, holiday shopping channel movies? Can you explain to me how this
Holiday
works?
movies. So DK and I, last night, we were watching TV. We have a Roku device. And you know how Roku on the home screen has the ad slot?
Okay, yeah.
So the ad was filled with QVC's like Christmas holiday movie.
Okay.
And we were like, I'm sorry. And we had to watch it.
Yeah.
It was 1 hour.
Oh, okay.
And it was big city girl goes to small town, meets widowed dad.
Perfect, as it should be.
And when you clicked into the details, it was selling like a thing from the movie.
Oh, interesting.
And it was...
I was wondering, how did this wrap around to their bottom line, but that makes sense.
Yes. And it was only an hour. We fast forwarded through most of it, but we just had to get... So can you guess how it ended?
Well, I mean, of course they end up together, right? But
what was the conflict? What would you guess is a conflict?
Okay, I don't know what it was they were trying to purchase, but let's say they were trying to purchase this like really fancy microwave, and so the conflict was that her other microwave was really bad, and he made fun of her microwave.
So the actual conflict of the movie. So what they're selling is this QVC like magic hot chocolate.
Okay.
And
I don't know what makes hot chocolate
and the
magic.
conflict of the movie came around because she has this boyfriend at home. And it's really funny because she's like, okay, I got to go back to my boyfriend later. And he's like sad and like, oh, she left. And then, of course, she comes back at the very end. And he's like, well, what about your boyfriend? And they didn't even show this, but she was like, turns out my boyfriend had another girlfriend. That was it.
It's just one line.
That was the conflict.
That sounds right.
That was the conflict. Anyways,
I'm going to have to watch it now.
It was quite good. And I think what they're trying to do eventually, and or QVC network, hire me to be the PM for this because I could totally make this happen. You can buy things, and it was the hot chocolate that they were selling. And then in the movie, they're like, oh, this is magical hot chocolate. And it's like Christmas spirit, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But what would be even better is if as you're watching it, different products pop up.
To you to buy like in
that's
the
like
movie.
in the movie, right? So like say they're drinking out of these mugs, you can buy these mugs, and then you fast forward and they're in like they're sitting on a chair and you can buy this chair.
Don't tell Bezos this because they already have that technology. Like when they pause inside of Prime Video, it shows like what actors are on screen and like, you know, who's actually in that specific scene.
Yep.
So they could highlight Amazon like products like this. That's such a good idea.
Business.
Don't tell Bezos.
Don't steal this idea. We came up with this idea. But anyways, we just thought it was amazing that QVC network is now getting into the Christmas movie game, like the Hallmark Christmas movie game.
I love that they're monetizing Christmas the way that it should be.
They're really monetizing that Christmas.
Do you want to play video games?
Yeah, let's play video games.
I'm Bridget.
And I'm Maddie. Welcome to Baddy Breakdowns, where we break down various games, hang out, have fun, and help you possibly find your next favorite or maybe your least favorite game. Today we're going to talk about Somerville. We're going to start with sharing a short description of the game, talk a little bit about how it's made and its reception. Then in the second half, we're going to deep dive on the game and our experience while playing it, closing with if we recommend it and who we recommend it to and our personal rating for that game. So with that, let's run away from some aliens and dive
I'm ready.
Okay. So the game description on Steam is in the wake of catastrophe, you must find the means to make your family whole again. Somerville is a sci-fi adventure grounded in the intimate repercussions of a large-scale conflict, which I think is fine. I wouldn't describe it that way.
Yeah, when you were saying those words, I was like, those are a lot of words that I don't necessarily...
I wouldn't describe it that way.
I don't know.
The way I would describe it is that you are a dude trying to find your family as the Earth is experiencing an alien invasion.
Yeah, I like that. That's right.
And it's a walking simulator with some puzzles.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Cool. Okay. Critical reception.
Yeah.
Bridget, take it away.
Yeah, so it's funny that you were talking about the walking simulator with puzzle pieces, because a lot of the making of for this one is related a little bit to that. So this game was made by a studio called Jumpship. This was their debut title. They haven't had a title come out under the studio before, which is really exciting for them. I know that this is a pretty new title. I think it came out November 15th of this year, so pretty new. And a lot of the folks that have been anticipating this game and looking forward to it were looking forward to it because it turns out that the co-founder of this studio, Jumpship, was actually the co-founder of a different studio called Playdead, who produced Limbo and Inside. Have you played those before?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, they're very, very, very good, but they're these puzzly platformer-esque games that I think set the stage for some of the better puzzle platformers that we've seen recently. And so I think a lot of the people that were picking up Somerville were picking it up thinking about Limbo and Inside and how good those titles were and expecting to see something similar here. But the big caveat is that it is a totally different studio. You know, like all the creative aspects of it were done by a different group of people. And the co-founder actually of Jumpship is an animator. His name is Chris Olsen. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you can see that in the game. You can tell that it's a very animated focused, visual art focused. And I think that has a lot to do with Chris's influence in this studio. And so it was really, really interesting. And when you get to the puzzle platformer bit, everyone is expecting, and that's a little bit of the critical reception, is everyone is expecting this puzzle platformer, kind of tough, kind of dreary, but in a good and interesting way. Limbo and Inside were very dark and intense. And even Olsen is no, this isn't a puzzle platformer. That's not what this is supposed to be. It's something totally different. And the reception of it kind of reflects that. It's all very mixed. So Steam,
interesting.
Yeah, so Steam is 60% and Metacritic is 72. Yeah, it wasn't super hot. And we'll talk, I think, more about this when we jump into it. I agree with some of this stuff, so I don't know. In my opinion, though, a lot of the negative reviews were super based off of those missed expectations of I want Limbo and this isn't Limbo. And it definitely isn't. I haven't played all of Limbo, but this isn't that. The artistic elements were what stood out the most, I think, from the reception on how great those artistic pieces were, but a lot of less love, we'll call it, towards things like the controls, camera elements, which we can talk more about. But overall, the reception, super, super mixed. I think I agree with that as we dig in a little bit more, but it is interesting that so much of the way that this game has been talked about has been based on this predecessor of Limbo and Inside, which honestly were so good, and it was a really high bar. I think that everyone is just reflecting that it didn't really hit that bar for them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm ready to talk about it because I think a lot of the reception pieces I'm kind of mimicking a little bit, so I'm ready to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bridget, what were your first impressions?
So I have serious first impressions for this one, and I also have fake first not fake, but whatever. Okay. I'll give you my actual first impressions, which were, one, this text is so small I am going to get a headache while playing this title.
Oh, interesting.
Did you play it on the computer or on the TV?
TV.
Okay, I played it on my TV. My TV is a 4K TV. I sit very far away from my TV, and the font was for ants. It was so small.
Is this a school for ants?
It was so small. And as I was looking at it, I was like, oh God, what have I done?
Is there a lot of reading?
There's not any reading in the actual game, so it ended up being fine.
Oh, okay.
But
just in that setup?
It's in the setup portions. And so when I'm sitting there looking at the screen and I'm like squinting, I'm like, oh gosh, another team that didn't play test sitting, 20 feet away from their television. That's giant, because that happens all the time.
What we call it in the industry is 10-foot design.
Oh, yeah, exactly. They did not design for a 10-foot experience.
They didn't apply the design principle of 10-foot.
Yeah, so that was a little disappointing, but that was my very first thought. And then my second thought was actually like, I didn't read much about this game, so my actual serious like first impression was, what kind of game did I just get myself into, and is this a horror? I thought it was going to be a horror game.
Yeah, I will jump into mine. So my first impression started when the actual gameplay started, that very first like intro where you're sitting on the couch with your wife and the baby.
Yeah.
And the first thing I wrote is, I will die for this dog. I
love that you put that. I am so concerned about losing this dog right now.
It's a recurring theme for me that we'll definitely go into. But yeah, my first thought is, I will die for this dog. And this is kind of scary, question mark. The way it's set up is your parents have fallen asleep and you're the kid. And you wake up because you hear something, and then you just kind of like, it's a toddler, so you kind of like toddle around.
I was going to say, you toddle.
Yeah. And you kind of waddle and toddle around and mess with stuff and get into trouble. You can pet the dog as the kid.
Yeah, but only that one time.
Only that one time.
I gave it a C+ and pet the dog. I was like, whatever. C minus.
But yeah, that was my first impression. I also thought like it was very atmospheric. I know we say that word a lot, but I just can't help it. Like the music, the art, the vibes, they all came together, I think, pretty successfully. Yeah, so those were my first impressions.
Yeah, I think the thing that made me think it was a horror right at the beginning was, one, like the lights were all off. It was super spook. And you were this little kid who looked kind of like Chucky. Like I had red hair.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I was toddling around. I was like, this baby looks like fucking Chucky. I don't know what I'm getting myself into. Why am I a toddler toddling? It was very stressful in a fun way. It wasn't like in a bad way. Mm-hmm. And then when like right at the beginning, as the intro is still happening, after you go from toddler to like person, there was a big jump scare. And so I was like, my very first thought was, oh, this is a horror game. I'm sitting in a horror. This is what's going to happen. And I didn't really know that that's what it was going to be. But then it wasn't really that.
It wasn't that. And I was excited for it to be that. Yeah, to be honest, that's exactly what I wrote, is like, oh, this is kind of scary. Like it's going to be this scary and atmospheric like alien invasion type game, and it ended up not being quite that scary, but it was still very atmospheric. I'll kind of just like give a little overview of what happens next in the game. So if you don't want to be spoiled, I think we're going to jump into the actual like what is happening in the game. Should we do that, or should we wait a little bit longer? Because it's not the ending, because there's two sections that we have. Like we can talk about the mid game and then we can talk about the ending.
Yeah, let's do spoilers for mid game, and let's save the ending spoilers for the very end.
Yeah. So essentially what happens is, after you're the kid, the alien invasion happens, and then you become the dad, and then as you're the dad, the alien invasion starts. Yeah. And you all get a go bag, and you have a go bag, and I wrote this because it very much irritated me. They run outside, the dad has the go bag. And do you know what a go bag is?
Yeah. I mean, like the bag it's a bag with a bunch of emergency stuff in it.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's running out to the car with it. The car gets smashed.
And then they drop the go bag.
And and I tried to pick it up.
They won't let you pick it up.
They won't let you pick it back up. It drove me nuts. I was like, why did I drop the bag? Why did I drop the bag? So then you go back into the house, you go into the basement, and then the alien something or other crashes into the house, goes into the basement, and you see this blue alien, and it reaches its hand out towards you. You touch the hand, poof, and it like does this big blue like shock thingy, and you pretty much die, essentially. Or your wife and kid thinks that you've died.
You look pretty dead.
you look pretty dead. And so then what happens is the wife and the kid start heading out on their own. And then the really cute thing is the dog stays behind with you.
So
the
cute.
dog won't leave your side. So that's when the actual game happens, is you come to and your wife and kid are gone, but your dog is still there. And you have this like blue glowy power from the blue alien that melts things when you touch a light with it.
Yeah, and so that's a lot of the puzzle mechanic for the core of the game, right? Is that you have this glowy thing, you're directing lights, you're moving objects around to try and direct the lights better or fix the lights or plug in lights or whatever. And there are some really creative pieces, but that's the core of the mechanic is
and then
melting
the goal of the
stuff.
game is you're trying to find your wife and your kid again.
Yeah.
So you leave the house, and then you run into various obstacles that you use your power to overcome. That's the purpose of the game. You're just trying to find your wife and kid again.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting bits when you get to the actual, like, you're out, you're in the gameplay, how things are moving, it is actually this 3D world, and so you can imagine yourself, you can move around and not just like a left and a right way, but it still feels pretty 2D, you know? Like, it's a very fixed, linear way that you're moving across this world, so there really is, like, you have levels with goals and puzzles that you're moving through, and even though it's 3D, it feels very, very linear. Like, I thought it was more 2.5 than 3D, really.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. It was interesting.
I agree. It is very linear. Okay. So when you're walking through the game, you're trying to get to your wife and kid. The dog is just on its own. And it's following you, kind of. It's running ahead. It's falling behind. That gave me so much anxiety.
I know.
So I legit had so much anxiety about this dang dog. I wrote it throughout my mid-game notes because sometimes the dog will stay behind, and I don't want the dog to stay behind. And so I would go back and like, am I supposed to like cajole him,
or have I done something wrong, and if I make a mistake, will he stay behind?
But that's not it. You just have to keep. At some point I wrote like, okay, forget the dog, he's a set piece. You don't do anything with this dog, because you don't. And it was so, Bridget and I are both dog owners. We both have 2 dogs, and I don't have any kids, and so I am very connected to my dogs, and I think that's why in this game I was like, okay, I have to make sure this dog is protected.
Yeah, he's my little
I have
baby.
to make sure he's sticking with me, and the dog just has a mind of his own. He doesn't do what you're doing. You don't do what he's doing necessarily. It's just 2 separate things, and I wish that that wasn't the case, or I wish that it would have stuck with you the whole time, because I was so worried for so much of the mid of the game, trying to get it to come with me to places, and I was wasting time doing that. That it was actually really frustrating, and it was giving me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, and then it turns out, like, every single time I would go from scene to scene, I would go back to try and get him, and then I noticed after a few scenes that he does eventually reappear. So I was like, oh, okay, it's fine. He is going to show back up, until the one time he didn't show back up. And I remember thinking for probably a solid hour of gameplay, did I make a mistake? And am I going to have to go and reload and play this again to get the dog to come back? Because literally I have, like you in my notes, I just have comments on the dog of like, oh no. I even actually, what's really funny is in the middle of attempting to save this like dog carrying the dog food, I accidentally punted my own dog off the couch. So there's just
Get out of here, real dog. I'm messing with this fake dog right now.
I felt so bad, but I have so many notes about it. And then my last note on the dog is, I am so concerned about losing this dog. And then the next line, I lost the dog.
Yeah. It's just, you just have to accept that it's going to come back, because it does. It does come back.
I think your description as a set piece was the correct one.
Yeah.
It was a set piece. It was there for, like, ambiance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually like that. And I would have changed that. I would have either had the dog stick with you the whole time or not.
Yeah.
Be with the wife and kid or something. I don't know. It just, the mixed way that he was there sometimes, not there sometimes, and then it wasn't clear whether you were supposed to be leading him somewhere. I think that's what I didn't like.
Yeah, I think it was that piece. I think it was okay that they dipped out and had you not have the dog for a portion of the game because he came back. And, like, I was okay with that. I was less okay with not knowing between each one if he was supposed to be coming with me, if I was supposed to be doing something to make him come with me. And so I get that I think they were trying to go for more realistic. Like, he's just a dog. He's running around where his owner is. And that was very cute. But it was very stressful when all I wanted to do was save this dog because he was all I had left. I wanted to save the dog, you know.
Totally.
Yeah. But speaking of cute other things that follow you around, those orbs.
Yeah, they are really cute.
They're so cute. I loved watching them. Like so in the game, right, it's an alien invasion. And so if you haven't picked up the game yet, as you go through the little world that is super run down, you stumble on these little orbs. I don't know if there's a better
little
way to
alien
describe
orbs.
them.
Yeah,
with like
they
a
roll
big
around on the
eyeball.
ground.
Yeah, and they roll around and you help
blink.
them out and it's cute. Yeah, they blink and when they blink you're like, oh, I'm supposed to open this gate for you. I'll let you through to meet your little orb family. It was so cute and they just follow you around in different places. I really liked that. I thought that was fun.
I also thought that was fun. And then when we get into the endings, I want to bring it back up.
Oh, yeah.
So the next thing that I have is that I personally thought the puzzles were very tedious and like didn't add much to the game. There was a few that I thought were okay, but some of them, like, I wish they had done a little bit more editing.
Do you have like one in mind?
Yeah, so the water rising. Do you remember that section?
When you were in the sewers?
And then it's rising and you're rising with it.
Yeah.
That took me a couple tries to time
the boulder falling.
Yeah. And I thought that was like a little tedious and I don't think added to my experience.
Yeah, because you had to redo the whole thing. Yeah.
I got stuck, and this one's really dumb. But before the water rising part, there's one part where all of the puzzles have to do with touching a light source. And the light source that you're supposed to touch is the car and then the car headlights. And I don't know why I got stuck at that one, but I did. And then some of the other times you had to be in a specific spot.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that's what was that's why I wrote tedious, is because the spatial like the art was really great, but it wasn't the spatial layout, I guess, wasn't in a way that made navigating.
Yeah, it was not intuitive for navigation. Yeah, that was the biggest qualm I had, is that I actually really liked the puzzles that they had from a like conceptual sense. Like some of them were very, very creative and fun. Like at one point you end up getting this UFO from a stage in the sky, and then you ride the UFO with its little headlights.
I did like that one.
Yeah, like there were pieces where I was like, wow, that is such a fun idea. I love the idea of this puzzle. And so I definitely appreciated that. I think there was also one other puzzle in the mines I really, really, really liked, with you had to fill up a cart with this goop and then put a thing.
Yeah, that one
goop
was good.
Yeah, it was so good because you had to think about like what happens when I harden goop, what happens when I like make it all liquidy again, how do I get these things in the right places. There were a few really, really good puzzles I liked. I think the biggest problem I had, like you're saying, was the actual mechanical, how I interacted with the world and controlled it, because it's like it felt like when I needed to pick up an object or interact with an object, one, they didn't have any symbols on the screen to tell you that an object was interactable. So
it was slight. Did you notice it was a really faint, like, orange paint?
Oh, no. I did not notice that at all.
The only reason I noticed it is because I noticed handles were similar. It blends in so well. But yes.
Okay, I
mean, that's almost not discoverable.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I totally didn't notice that at all. And so the first thing was that I would be running around attempting to click stuff, and then if you weren't in the exact correct orientation with the thing you were trying to click, it would not click.
Yep.
And so then I was like, is this just not an object I can interact with? Or is this an object that I can and should be interacting with? And instead I'm going to pivot around this object in every single angle in order to figure out if I can actually touch it, which is what I ended up doing for most of the things, which was, like you're saying, super tedious and really annoying. And I felt like if it had just been a little bit smoother and worked a little bit nicer, then the puzzles would have been an easy thing to just move my way through and be like, oh, that's creative and fun, not a lot of difficulty, like a very pretty environment, like I'm here for that. But because it was so tedious, it felt frustrating.
Yep, I completely agree. Yeah, I wish they would have done better on that one.
Yeah, it feels more like cleanup things. Maybe there'll be bug patches that will clean it up here soon.
And let's talk about that at the very end as well. Because it's like, I feel like there was so much potential there, and it just, again, needed editing. So when you get into, so this is kind of getting into the late mid game, you find another alien guy who rescues you from a scary alien. So there's the orbs, which are nice, but then there's also these like raptor type, like robotic raptor type aliens that are kind of scary. I don't know.
They're very scary. They make screechy noises.
There's a point where you're running away from it, and then another alien dude that looks more like human, similar to the blue alien that crashed through your place originally.
I've decided they are human.
Oh, they are human.
I've decided they are. I have a whole page on lore, but I've decided they're human.
Interesting. I thought it was another alien species. Like, I thought it was... Okay, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
You find... And he's red. And then the thing that I wrote is I was like, yay! Because he rescues you, and then you find your dog again. And I was like, yay, dog! And then, oh no, I fell. Because he falls, and then, oh no, he died. Just, sad, oh no, I fell. Sad. Oh no, he died. And you touch his hand, and that's when you get the red power. And now you have a blue power and a red power, and the blue power melts things, and the red power hardens things. And then that's like the rest of the puzzle stuff. And then after that, and this is kind of towards the ending of the mid game. Yeah, you finally find your wife and kid again.
Yeah, that was so sweet.
Yes.
Ish.
And so now it's like the wife, the kid, the dog, you're all back together. You find them in this kind of makeshift shelter.
Yeah, I think it was a grocery store.
Yes. It has other people in it. You can't talk to the other people. It's kind of more just, again, very set piece. I feel like everything is very much like set pieces and less so interactable places. Then you leave. The safety.
Yeah, I
and
know,
that's
for
what I
some
wrote.
Reason I don't understand.
I wrote, what the F they left.
I was so confused. I understand that we need to have more video game. Like, at that point, it was pretty early, so I knew we needed more video game. But why in the world, after this huge, long trek, you finally find your wife and child? You don't even nap for a second. You're just like, okay, found him. I'm like leaking blood and dying, and I guess I'm gonna go out into the world again. Yeah. Crazy.
Okay, so now we're gonna get into the ending part, because I think after that it starts getting into ending territory.
Spoilery, yeah.
So if you don't want to hear about the ending of the game, skip ahead and we'll have an off-topic section at the end that you can listen to. But now let's talk about the ending.
I'm ready.
I'll just give a little overview. So you leave the grocery store with your wife and your kid, and now you're like actively dodging these raptor-y aliens that are chasing you at this point, trying to escape from them throughout the streets of a city. You go up a clock tower. You get rescued by a purple alien lady. Or human lady,
and
depending.
You decide to just leave
and
your family
behind. Okay, so what happens is you get to the top of the clock tower and you're stuck. Your wife, your kid, you're all stuck. You have nowhere else to go.
You're being attacked. Like,
you're
there's
being
a lot
attacked
of
actively. Yeah. You're about to die, and then a big spaceship flies up, puts its little thing down. You run onto the spaceship. Your wife and your kid attempt to, but it closes on them. And the last thing you see is raptor scary aliens like descending on your wife and your kid.
Yeah, horrifying.
And what is this? What is happening? And why?
Why wouldn't you have picked up your child before you ran into the thing? Why wouldn't you have held your wife's hand as you jumped? Why wouldn't you have let her jump first? I still have so many questions.
Yeah. So many. It does this little cut sequence, cutscene. Sorry, cut sequence.
Oh,
Made up a new word. Cutscene where it flies and you kind of pass out.
Yeah.
And you wake back up and you're back with your wife and kid on the couch. And so then the other thing that I wrote is, has this all been a dream? But then it isn't.
Oh, yes.
But then it isn't.
Yeah, it isn't.
And you relive some parts of the game that you've already played in kind of a dream sequence.
Yeah, like you like cut through specific pieces of the game. Like you don't replay the whole thing.
And then I wrote, this got way more interesting.
It did, but we're at the end now.
Yeah. I was like, wow, this got way more interesting.
So at this point, what we know, I'm going to start getting into the lore a little bit, pieces at a time.
Yep.
At this point, what we know is that aliens have crash landed.
Yep.
And that you, for some reason, keep acquiring powers from these dead alien humanoid things.
Yeah.
And you, for some reason, keep continually getting protected also from the alien humanoid things. And the world is still...
Or protected by them.
Yes. Yeah. And yet, at the same time, all of these cute little orby things that are clearly also aliens are running around cleaning up stuff, like making it melt away and being really nice to you. And so by the time you get into this weird, like, I'm going to replay everything, I'm in this weird dreamscape thing, which we're about to get into, literally all you know is you've got these powers for some reason, and some aliens seem nice and some don't, and it's very confusing. So I just want you guys to know, as you listen, if you're confused, that's okay.
We were too. We were also
Very
confused. At this point, what was your theory? Because I had a theory. What was your theory?
So my theory was that because I had gotten these powers, the aliens thought that I was also an alien now. So they needed me for some form of like experiment to be like, oh, you're like human alien hybrid. Like we need to figure out what is going on with this person. But at the same time, we had seen earlier in the game some people being like beamed up, like beam me up, you know, into the alien ship. So obviously they were capturing people. So I just assumed I was one of the other ones they wanted to capture, especially because I had these weird alien powers now. And that was literally the only hunch I had because I couldn't really get anything else out of it.
Yeah. So mine was that, because at this point we've had two different alien-y, quote unquote, alien-y experiences. One with the scary aliens, which was like the raptor type thing.
Yeah.
And then one with these seemingly okay aliens, which were more humanoid, as well as the orbs.
Yeah.
And so what I thought is maybe these were two different alien races that were fighting each other and used Earth as like the battlegrounds. That is kind of what I thought. And then the orbs and the humanoids were on one side, and then the like raptor, I don't know, what was that? Purple glowy whatever was on another. That was what I kind of thought.
I mean, they did visually look very different, right?
Yeah.
But I think the humanoid and the little orbies to me would be on opposite sides though, because like the little orbies were very machiney with like one glowing eyeball. That's true.
They were really similar to the raptors.
Yeah, and they were really similar to the raptors, which had like one glowy color and then were otherwise very mechanically. And so I feel like I would put them on the same side.
You're right. Yeah. That's kind of what I thought. Yeah. Should I keep going?
Yeah, keep going, because I think as we get more and more into it, we'll have more and more to dig into.
So then what happens is you wake up from this dream sequence in a way, and you're in the ship, and then they make you do some tests.
Yeah.
And then you go back into a dream sequence-y type thing.
I couldn't figure out if this was like... I thought the first one might have been a dream sequence, and then after the test, it was like a simulation, like a forced simulation or something. Like they were implanting memories in your head.
Got it. Yeah, because you were...
That's kind of what I thought.
Because at this point, you've absorbed the power of two, a red and a blue humanoid, and then there's a purple humanoid.
Yeah.
And you... What you get the gist of is that it's these three heroes, kind of, that were sanctioned as heroes. And now you're operating as a combined hero between the red and the blue guy. And you're working with the purple lady or person or alien, whatever. You do a little testy thingy, and then they shoot you at the hub of the evil aliens.
Yes.
So you get shot out of a ship, think like bullet style, and then you infiltrate The two of you infiltrate.
The two. Yes, it's both of us.
At what point do you get the purple powers?
So that's actually an interesting part of it. So you don't get the purple powers right away.
You don't.
You are in like...
Because you get shot into the thing, and now you're like trying to defeat these eyeball things? Clusters?
Kind of. Yes. Yeah.
With little puzzles.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't actually get the purple power until the very, very, very end, right before the final ending. I know, because I was upset the whole time thinking, why don't I have purple powers yet? And I'm over here trying to use it, and I couldn't.
Yeah. But you know that that's coming. You kind of know it's coming. You do a series of puzzles to, quote, destroy these clustery things. They seem like a mainframe. Like, think of it as like little mainframes or something.
I agree with that. Yeah.
After you destroy like 3 of them, you get to another dream sequency thing.
Yeah. So this is where I think it's like implanting memories, because they try to trick you. The aliens, I think, try to trick you.
Did you get tricked?
Yes, I did. I definitely got tricked. Of course I got tricked.
Wait. Okay. So you go into another dream sequence and you're kind of crashing through barriers and stuff.
Yeah.
And then a thing pops up where it's your wife and kid sitting in front of a TV again.
Yeah.
And is this where you got?
I actually didn't get there.
No, me neither.
I got I got the other time.
I'll keep going. Then we can talk about the endings. So then you walk up these staircases and now you're in like a stadium auditorium area.
Okay, okay, then I did get got earlier.
Oh, you did get got earlier.
So they are like 3 points between the like dream simulation to when you get to that final stadium piece where you can get got. And it's just your wife, like watching TV, but on different like places. And the one that got me, I didn't get got on the first one, but there's a portion where you've started busting through the walls, like Maddie was saying. Like, everything looks real. It looks like a real world, but you bust through the fake walls and realize, you bust through the fake walls and realize that you can keep going. And so what I thought was, okay, I'm busting through these walls, I'm at the end game. And so I actually got caught where I thought I was at the end, because I had busted through all these walls. I had found these secret like directions I'm supposed to be going, and then here's my wife, she's sitting on the couch, and I didn't see a way to keep going. And so I sat down on the couch, and then I was talking to my partner Chris, and I'm like, is this the end? Is this the end of the game? I was actually kind of ticked. I was like, I cannot believe this is the end. This is so dumb. And then the screen started fading out. and then I got caught.
And then you saw accepted your fate.
Exactly. And I was like, I accepted no fate. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Okay, so you got. So I didn't get got there.
Okay, I did.
I kept going, and that's where you get to this auditorium thing. And then you have a glowing blue eye, a glowing red eye, and a glowing purple eye in the middle, and it starts like a Simon Says game. And this is the very, very end.
Yeah, this is the end. You're at the last
So you can get got before that, and the only reason I knew about that thing that you got we keep saying got.
I gotta stop.
Where you got tricked. I only knew about that because I wanted to play all the endings.
Oh, and so you found it afterwards.
And so I found it afterwards. But you start this, now you emerge after you bust through all these walls. You emerge at this stadium.
Well, now you've gotten the purple power, too.
And now you've gotten the purple power. And you hold hands with these people in the stadium. So it's kind of like humans taking a last stand is kind of how I was picturing it. Go for it.
And I think it's children. I think you're holding hands with children.
It is.
Yeah.
They're really tiny.
Yeah, they're so small. They have to be children.
Poor kids.
I know.
Well, I think some of them are kids, but the ones you're directly holding hands with did look like kids.
Yeah, they looked little. Yeah.
Yep. And it starts a Simon Says game. And this is where I got tricked.
Okay.
Is you do the Simon Says, and if you do the Simon Says game, and I thought, okay, we're doing it. I just have to do Simon Says. I got to do really good at it, and I'll win and not mess up Simon Says. And your house floats out into the middle, and your wife and kid walk out of the house.
Yeah.
And you walk in.
And then you get got.
And then it says, Accepted fate.
Yeah.
And what I wrote in my notes is, accepted my fate? No. What happens is it then starts playing the credits, and then did you watch the after credit clips?
Of course I watched the after credit scenes.
So the after credit scene for Accepted Fate is the whole world is destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the worst ending.
I think it is.
And that's got to be the majority of people.
Yeah, I think the reason why that one was actually, like, that was a really fun ending for me because I had already gotten stuck on the bench and got the accepted my fate. By the time I got to this house, I was like, haha.
So did you look it up, or did you were like jumped right back in?
I jumped right back in. So
cool.
I kept playing because I was like, if this says accepted my fate, there's no way that this is the final thing.
Oh,
so
totally.
I played again. When I had finally got to this arena thing, I'm like, haha, I've made it to the real ending. And so then I walk into the stupid house, and then it's like, accepted your fate a second time. And I'm like, get Ben!
No!
And then I started up a third time to try and get more endings. And at this point, I hadn't looked up anything yet.
Okay, so I also did one more try without looking stuff up. Mm-hmm. The next one I tried is I noticed that when you use the purple power, they started to kind of shake.
Yeah, and there's like specks that float in the air. Yeah.
And so I just spammed the purple. Okay, so this was the second one that you did too. And so then what happens is when why don't you do it? Because I've been talking a lot.
Well, no. It's just if you spam the purple one, I think I ended up just long pressing purple for a really long time. Then everything starts to shake, and eventually like your house pulls away, and you pretty much just defeat the aliens. Like you defeat them.
And it's called Chose Violence.
Yeah, and so then you end up with this War of the Worlds scenario where you've just decided to destroy them, but because you destroyed them, you destroyed everyone else too.
Well, in your immediate
bubble. Yeah. And so that one was the one that I landed on. And I was really proud of myself for finding an ending that wasn't just the Simon Says house ending. And then, of course, it's the, like, destroy aliens and everybody there.
Did you watch the clip afterwards?
I did, yeah. All of this stuff is really sad for, like, the after clips, except
so
for the one nice ending.
Yes, there's two. There's two nice endings.
I feel like there is only one. I reject you that the other ending is nice.
So the Choose Violence ending, the last clip that you see is your dog by himself as the world kind of crumbles down around him.
It's so sad.
I thought that one was worse than the Accepting Fate one.
Me too.
Honestly,
I thought it was worse. It was the least happiest ending for me.
And then at that point I started looking stuff up.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is where everything starts to this is where I got super into the lore and the final puzzle. And I actually have way too many thoughts on that. I say let's get into it. How did you start approaching getting these last two endings?
I googled.
Okay, but when you looked it up though, did you look it up to just be like, okay, what do I need to do in this final scene to get the right thing, or did you try to do it a different way?
No, I did it that way, and I want to hear what you did to do better. I didn't know that there was a puzzle to get to. I thought it was like guessing.
Okay.
And no, in the guide that I had found, it didn't say that this was a puzzle to get. And so what I did is I saw, okay, there's something called Family First. I'm going to do that one. Mm-hmm. Okay, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so when we get to the last couple of endings, the Family First one is the first one that you can get into. And I'll start talking a little bit to what the puzzle actually is and the lore and stuff. Because like you mentioned, the guides online are really crappy. And I think it's because this game is so new.
It's new.
And if I'm being really honest with you, I think the final puzzle isn't very good. And I mean this as someone who like loves puzzles and writes puzzles, and I have many thoughts on why I think that. But the last puzzle is a leap, a pretty big leap. And so when you get up to the arena, like Maddie was talking about, you get what seems like Simon Says. It is, they make a pattern, you make a pattern back. They make a pattern, you make a pattern back. But in order to get the final endings, you can't do Simon Says. You have to go out on your own route. And instead of thinking of it like Simon Says, you think of it as a conversation. So instead of mimicking, what they're doing is saying hello. And then you say hello back, because blue, red, blue in their language means hello. Yeah. And so it was really interesting because the way that I ended up getting the free family one is, luckily, this is how I do all of my things that have puzzles, because I don't like to be spoiled, is I just tell my boyfriend to look up and get spoiled and then give me hints.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because as he's looking stuff up to give me hints, he's like, I can't give you a better hint than just do it because all these guides are so bad and it doesn't explain why.
Yeah.
And so we were going back and forth with, I'm yelling at him being like, give me a hint. And he's like, I can't give you hints except for the pattern. And eventually he gives me a hint of, you probably have seen the pattern somewhere else. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went back to some of the interactions with the little Orbeez. And I decided to try blue, blue, blue because that was how you could get interactions out of them. So, like, if you stand in front of the little orbs and you go blue, 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 then they go purple, purple, purple back. Yeah. And I'm like, aha! And so when I get back to the ending, I was like, okay, I'm going to do blue, blue, blue. And then you get your family first ending, which is, in my opinion, a good but melancholy ending. So similarly to the way that the house pops up, a portal-ish type of thing pops up, which is what you used earlier to, like, free people from the aliens, and inside is your family. And you can sacrifice yourself to free your family. And so the after credit scene is they walk back to the house, your wife and child and your dog, and you die. Yeah. And it's very, very sad, but you do, like, save your family.
You at least save your family. How did they get rescued from that clock tower, though?
I still have no idea. No, so actually my hunch on that was that the aliens haven't been killing people. They've been abducting them and putting them in those little portals. And so that's why there are people to free. That's what I think it is.
That's exactly what it is. You're probably right.
Yeah. And so that was kind of that first ending. But then there's still one more.
Yes.
Ending that is sitting out there, and this is where my anger for this stupid puzzle comes, because, like, the blue, blue, blue one I think was actually pretty straightforward, and in the same way you're supposed to solve this last ending, which is the good ending, is you need to understand and have conversations with all these little Orbeez in order to make the conversation at the end. And so here's my problem with this. If you feel differently, let me know. I love puzzles. I have a strong principle that when it comes to puzzles, there are very often leaps of logic that you have to take, right? Yeah. Like, you have to figure out that, oh, I lean on this car in order to use the headlights. But the leap that you make in a puzzle like that is, I need to find light sources. You know you have that information, so you find a light source, and you can make that leap. Like, that leap can happen. And you can get frustration between those leaps, but if the leap is well understood, then great. Yeah. And this last leap, I made a pretty good leap into, I've seen these patterns before. It does seem like they're saying hello and thank you and help me based on these patterns. So I made the leap and I figured out that this is a language thing and there's a conversation that needs to be had. But the final leap on what to say to the aliens in order to get this last ending, to me, absolutely impossible. It's way too obscure. It's too hard to understand. I literally went through every single conversation with these orbs, wrote out what I was doing. I was standing at a fence. They said this color pattern. I opened the fence. They said this color pattern. I met this new thing. They said this color pattern when I opened the, and so to do that, like, I found out that there were words for hello and help and thanks and danger. Like, I got all those words. There were different portraits and drawings all throughout the game. I don't know if you noticed that had, like, blue. I
did notice.
Yeah.
But I didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah, those are words. And so, like, in the game on walls, it has, like, blue, blue, blue. And then it'll show a picture of, in my opinion, like, a human. And then it'll show, like, purple, 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 and it'll show, like, an orb. And then it'll show whatever. I think red, red, red was another one. It had one in there. But the idea was that if you take all of these symbols on the walls and you take the conversations you have with these orbs, that eventually you can come up with enough of a vocabulary that when you get to these final aliens at the end, you can just talk to them. Yeah. And make peace by having a conversation. Yeah. Which is such a cool idea that I think they borked. I just think they did it bad.
So what's the ending thing that you have to say? Because I totally, like I said, I just looked it up. So I actually love that you're going into this because I completely missed it and I'm bummed I missed that.
Well, I love puzzles and I'll tell you what the ending was. So I don't know if this is exactly the right translation. I did end up having to put in just some patterns myself because I could not figure it out. But it seems like what you do is you say hello, they say hello, you say hello back. You need to say something along the lines of blue, 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 purple, purple, purple together. That's the next like line you have to say. And my hunch is that means blue, 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 I think is humans, and purple, 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 I think is aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that from like the cave patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And so you say like humans and aliens. So I'm assuming that he's trying to say like we can live together or we can be together or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow you have to be the one that thinks of saying both humans and aliens together. I literally have no idea why you would ever do that in order to further this conversation. And then you have to like have this conversation where you use a pattern that I still couldn't figure out, which is red, red, red over and over again. My hunch is that it means children. And at some point you say something along the lines of aliens put children in danger or aliens kill children. And then they're like, no, humans killed children. And you're like, no, aliens. And you like go back and forth that way.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, until you're like, no, please, like my family or something like that. And then they decide to make peace and let everybody go because they realize that they've been hurting children instead of like them making the assumption that you have. But I literally have no idea if that's true because there's a couple of words in there that just don't make sense.
Yeah.
And so that's why the puzzly bits in this one are actually more frustrating than anything is because a few games like this has happened recently where the whole game is a puzzle at the end. Surprise, like Tunic did this. Loved the way that Tunic did it. The way that they did it here, there was just so many leaps you had to make in order to put together that final conversation. Yes, the word translation was there, but not only did you have to get the word translation, but you had to somehow tell them that like they needed to protect children instead of hurt children. And you can kind of make that assumption by saying like you've been helping the little orbs the whole time, which might be alien children. I don't know. But then the order that you tell them it doesn't really make any sense. So like overall, I don't know. It was interesting. I'm glad that I tried to read about it and understand it. I honestly think that there are things that they could fix with that final puzzle to make it really impactful.
Totally.
When I read about it, I'm like, that's so cool. I love the idea of using these pieces of the language to make things.
Yeah, I love that.
I just don't know how you actually put it together in the end in a way that makes sense. And I did end up having Chris just tell me the lines to put in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I took forever.
I love the promise there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
So then the cut scene after you do that one is you go back to your house with your wife, your kid, and your dog. And then you see in the background that the alien ships all leave.
Yeah.
So it's the happiest ending that you can get.
Yeah. I'm glad that I pushed through to like get the happy ending. Because at that point I was kind of burnt out a little bit because in order to find all the orbs,
because you were
I had
going
to play
through
everything.
all of the chapters again.
Yes, and so the tedium that you mentioned, there was so much tedium because if it had been smooth, fine. They did give you a way to like transport to the different chapters, which was nice.
Yeah.
It was a labor of love.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Do you want to talk about final thoughts?
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Oh, and our rating.
Yeah.
And I have a rating system that we're gonna talk about a little bit. So my final thoughts was that it was good, not great. I did enjoy it. The music was really good. It was very atmospheric. I really liked the promise of the game. I would just edit. Like it needs another pass. And I think that if this was an early access or some sort of beta access or whatever, it would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Because I think that if they would have done more play testing maybe or gotten more feedback, it could have been made into this like insanely cool, impactful War of the Worlds type game. Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of my thought, my closing thought.
So would you recommend it?
I would recommend it, and I would recommend it to people who like walking simulators. Yeah. And don't mind having to work through some bugs. I think I would maybe wait until they did another patch, possibly, before jumping in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm in a similar-ish spot. I gave it like a maybe. I would maybe recommend it. I think I got what I wanted to out of it in the first maybe like hour. because I got the music and I got the visuals, which were beautiful. Like, and the music was absolutely amazing.
Yep.
If there's a soundtrack, like I would definitely listen to that on
Yep.
Spotify. Like, yes, please. But it is like $25 unless you play it with like a subscription. I looked it up on Steam. It's like $25. I don't know that I'd pay $25.
It is on Game Pass too, which
Yeah.
is, yes, actually, let me caveat my recommendation. If you have Game Pass, I think it's worth
Yeah, so
trying.
that
Yeah.
was my recommendation, is like, I don't know that I'd pay $25 for it. I think if it's free, I would definitely give it at least like an hour, like go and see what it's like. I would also say that, like, I've had a friend before who doesn't like to play certain types of games but likes to watch them, and she watched a friend play Ori because it was too hard for her, but she thought it was beautiful and really loved that, like, atmosphere part. And so I'd also say too, if you don't have something like a Game Pass and you don't want to pay $25, watch a streamer do it, because it is
Great idea.
beautiful and it's got great, like, graphics and sound, and the whole world is just really pretty. So I would say at least that at minimum, but I would give it a shot at least on Game Pass, but I don't think I would pay the $25 for it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, rating. And we're changing up the rating. I know that last time we were going to do out of 5 daddies, but I think that doesn't always fit the vibe.
Right. Yeah.
And so what we're now going to change it to is our rating system is going to be relevant to the game that we're talking about.
Which I love.
So the rating system that I came up with for this game is wife and kid.
Okay.
So I would give this game 3 out of 5 wife and kids.
I had two. I had 2.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
It feels bad. I want.
I don't think it feels bad.
I want the developers that made this game to know that I did think it was beautiful. I think if you gave it a little bit of time and got the bugs fixed as a player and then jumped in, it would definitely be at least like a 3. But I think the bugs really knocked it down for me. It was tough.
All right.
Oh.
2 out of 5 wife and kids for Bridget.
Does that make me a polygamist now?
No. Boo. Okay. So that's Somerville. Now we can go into the off-topic section. So for today, off-topic, what shows are we watching?
What shows are we watching, Maddie?
Because I've been sick over the Thanksgiving holiday, which is a big bummer, and I've been watching a K-drama to make myself feel better, and I wanted to talk about it.
Yes, tell me about your K-drama.
Okay, so I've watched a couple of them before, and I know that you told me before we started recording that you haven't watched them yet.
Yeah.
But I think you would really like them.
I've liked the K-drama movies I've watched. I haven't watched TV.
Yeah, the TV show. So I watched and finished the Extraordinary Attorney Woo.
Mm-hmm.
It is a show about a woman who is on the autism spectrum, and she's an attorney in South Korea, and she does cases. So each episode is centered around a case that she's assigned to.
I like that. I watched a lot of Law and Order.
Oh, yeah, you'd probably actually really like it. It's really good. And then there's, she like has a love interest, and then she has to deal with certain societal things. But the reason I like it so much, and I'm like trying to hunt for groups on Reddit to discuss it with, but the K-drama subreddit doesn't really get very political. But I actually think the show is really like beautifully political. I don't know how else to say it. But,
Yeah, like what do you mean?
So for example, in the second episode, I'm going to spoil a tiny thing.
Okay, I accept it.
Is that okay?
Second episode.
Okay.
Fine. Yeah.
Second episode, I'm going to spoil. Essentially, it's about a woman whose wedding dress fell down in her wedding, and so they're suing the dressmaker for not making it tight enough because she pretty much flashed her whole family, because as she was walking down the aisle it like fell
Did they
and
not have
showed her
fittings?
tatas.
They would have had to have fittings.
They did, and that's the whole thing. So then Attorney Woo figures out that
They did have a fitting.
they had a fitting, but then the day of the wedding there was a rip in the dress, and so the bride didn't find it. The tailors and stuff found the rip, and they just exchanged the dress for another dress that matched it that they had that was like a size. So it wasn't the fitted dress, it was the old one. So
Are
then,
all the cases like that kind of vibe?
some of them get more serious, some of them get more silly.
Okay, I like
really,
the silly.
It really depends on the episode.
Yeah.
But essentially at the very end, what happens is you kind of get this feeling throughout the whole episode that the bride didn't want to get married anyways, and it's her dad that's pushing the lawsuit because it's a very patriarchal society, like South Korea is, and the dad was like, I'm embarrassed because everyone saw my daughter's boobs, essentially, and I'm owed compensation for that.
I've been traumatized by these breasts. I've been
wronged. Yes. And the daughter, she doesn't want to get married, and then at the very end you find out that she's in a relationship with another woman.
Oh.
And that's why she didn't want to get married, and she like does this whole thing where she, you know, speaks out in front of the whole, you know, jury and stuff, and is like, I want to dismiss this lawsuit and I don't want to get married. And then the dad is like yelling at her, and she's just like, nope, and this is my girlfriend. And then they like walk off together holding hands, and that's actually really, really progressive. And I looked into it afterwards because I was like, wow, they're like really intense about this gay relationship. Like the dad literally like passes out.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, he like yells at her and then like passes out because he's like so like upset.
Yeah, right. He has once again
but
been
you get the feeling that
traumatized.
the young people, so like the young attorneys, like Attorney Wu,
all,
and
like,
then the other were like, they were like, oh, cool. Or not like, oh, cool, but like, good for them. Good for them.
Yeah.
But all of the old people, like, even when she reveals it, like, everyone gasps and they're like, oh, no.
Right. Okay.
And I looked it up, and gay people cannot get married in South Korea.
Oh,
so it's not recognized at all. Actually, the Supreme Court struck it down in this year.
Oh, gosh.
Like, again this year. So they keep striking it down. People keep suing, trying to get the Supreme Court of Korea to recognize same-sex marriages, and they keep striking it down. And it's actually the country with the biggest disparity between younger generations and older generations being accepting.
Yeah.
So for people under the age of 30, 71% accept it. Over the age of 30, 16.
Wow.
And so it's still not legal. Yeah. The other thing is they have no protections against discrimination. Yeah. So it is completely legal in South Korea to fire someone based on their sexuality, which is insane to me. But I thought it was really cool that this really popular K-drama is actually showing it in a positive light. Yeah. And it does other things like that throughout the show that really poke at some societal issues that's very progressive.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because I was like, well, you would see that kind of disparity if, like, the media didn't really, like, you know, show it as a normal, natural thing. Like, I feel like they've done a lot better of recently in the U.S. Not perfect, but you know what I mean? Like, there's more. And I was about to be like, well, does the media do it? And then you're literally telling me about a TV show. So at least one.
Well, and I think that was like very unique.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right? Like I got the feeling that it's very unique. And the other thing that it touches on is because it centers around a woman on the like autistic spectrum. That's also very progressive.
That's what I was thinking, actually. Even
especially the fact that she has a romantic interest that's neurotypical. And so that piece they explore as well. And so all of it is just like very good, very progressive, and I really like it and I really recommend it.
Yeah, well, now you made me want to go watch it. Wait, where have you been watching it at?
Netflix.
This is not a commercial for Netflix.
This is not endorsed. I wish Netflix pay us.
Pay us.
But there's my big endorsement of Extraordinary Attorney Wu. Okay, what have you been watching?
Mine is like way less cool than that. I literally have just been binging Once Upon a Time for the first time.
Okay, yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah,
It's late to the game.
Have you watched it?
My Once Upon a Time history is that I watched the first 2 seasons with my parents.
Okay.
I believe I was still living at home when they came out.
Yeah,
like,
it's old.
It's pretty old.
Yeah.
When they first started coming out. And then it got too crazy for us and we dropped off.
Yeah.
But the first 2 seasons the first season actually
the first season was really
so good.
Yeah. So I had actually watched the first season of it, I want to say like 3-4 years ago, maybe longer. What had happened is I was also slow to the boat on Lost. And I it was never spoiled, so I won't spoil you. I watched
the last episode, so.
Okay.
I'd never seen anything, and then it was in high school. I tagged along with my older brother to
for, like,
a watch party for the very last episode.
Okay. Well, you probably didn't get enough context for it to be
not at all
anyway. But I really loved Lost, and for some reason, Once Upon a Time had like 3 actors from Lost in it. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna watch this show next. So after I finished Lost, I watched the first season. I really liked it, and then I made it like 3 or 4 episodes in the second season, and I was like, me, and stopped watching it. And then recently, we were looking for one of the things that we like to do in between like the new short limited series we watch is to watch like really long old things I've already finished. Our last one was Vampire Diaries, so this one,
oh my god, you did Vampire Diaries?
Oh, I did, and I loved it. I loved every second.
Oh my gosh. hot take
And then so we're in the middle of Once Upon a Time now, and so my only thoughts on it so far is it has definitely gone wild. I think we're in season 4. Super wild, does not get less wild, it only gets more fantastical, but I have still actually really been liking it my second time around. I've liked it a lot more.
Okay.
And I do think that it's helpful that Chris has been pushing me through, because I think there's been a few that I'm like, I don't know if I would have picked this back up again, but we keep pushing through, and I'm happy that we have, and so I will continue to make it to the end. So far, I would give it a 7 out of 10 snowflakes, because I was just on this Frozen season.
They have a Frozen season?
Yeah, it was actually like pretty good. I kind of liked it. They called so the queen in there, that's not whatever her name is, Elsa.
Yeah.
She owns an ice cream shop, and so as a joke, they keep calling her the Dairy Queen, and it's so funny to me. I really liked it.
That's good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but mine isn't some like life-changing show. It's just Once Upon a Time, but it's good, and it has Elsa in it right now. So, you know. I
give Attorney Woo 10 out of 10 whales, which would make sense if you watch the show.
Rude.
It's a reference. She's obsessed with whales, so that's like what part of her character.
Okay.
Anyways, okay. Thank you for listening to our podcast. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Baddy Breakdowns. Both of the handles are Baddy Breakdowns. And you can visit our website, baddybreakdowns.com, made by the very super talented Bridget Kuhn.
Ooh, it's Keen.
Oh, shit. I want to redo that.
No, you can leave it in.
Okay. Is it really?
It's Keen, like Peachy Keen. My dad was going to name me Peachy at some point as a joke.
I've been saying Coon this entire time.
If it makes
I
you
guess
feel
I've never said it out loud.
If it makes you feel any better, I didn't know how to say your last name until you said it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
it's weird. It has a silent N.
Well, yeah. It's Wiznat. Is that right?
Wiznat.
Yeah, and I was pronouncing the E.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And there's a silent N. It's hard.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna keep going. I won't redo it. We'll just keep this all in there. The podcast art was done by the lovely Tanisha Vernikar, and the podcast was edited by me, Maddie Wiznat.
Don't you mean Wisenot?
Okay. Off the rails. Join us next time to hear us two baddies break down Doki Doki Literature Club.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I'm also very excited. Okay. Bye.
Bye.